we will revisit some of the questions that we had posed in the last session. That you have a running train. You have a running train which is going at 500 km per hour. Okay, and in which direction should you jump to increase the length of your jump? Right. So this one, and we also discussed the other setup was. So which direction should you jump? Direction should you jump to increase the length of your jump? Right, and another question is there is this aeroplane which is dropping food packets one by one, right? And when it falls on the ground, so when it will take the speed to be 1,000 km per hour.
Yeah.
1,000 km per hour, and then the time interval between two drops is 5 seconds. If this is the case, how would it arrange itself on the ground, right? This was one question. And then we also saw when you're going in a flight, and you toss a coin vertically up, where will it fall? Will it fall exactly in, and we are taking that the flight is traveling in a uniform speed at the uniform height. Will it fall exactly in your hand or below you, behind you, or in front of you, right? So any thoughts on these questions?
I think so. In a plane, when you toss a coin, it will fall in your hand only. In a train also, if you're, not only just tossing and catching it back in your hand, but you can also play, like you can throw it across the train and the ball will land where you expected it to go.
Right.
So my answer for the first one is, it makes no difference.
It makes no difference. Okay. So how are you saying this? Have you tried it? Did you try it?
No, I'm basing it off the observations of ball. I'm basing it on the observation for the ball.
Which ball?
Like if I throw a ball in a train, it will land where I expect it to. It's not like the movement of the train is not affecting the movement of the ball.
Throwing, in the sense, throwing, you're talking about throwing up so that it lands on your hand, or you're simply saying throwing? Because throwing means
throwing from the front of the cabin to the back or whatever.
I had tried simply playing around while traveling in train. Those bottles will be there, no, water bottles. So I have tried. So it falls in my hand only, no? Because see, train is in motion, but we are at rest only, right? When you are at rest and you are throwing a ball above you, the ball obviously will come to your hand only, right? Imagine instead of ball, it is water bottle. But
but I'm saying if you toss if you let's say there's a target, right? And you're trying to hit the ball to the target.
Okay. There is a target you have fixed while you're traveling in train, and you're trying to hit the target.
So it will still work. It is not like the motion of the train is going to change the motion of the ball.
There are two cases, Gauri ma'am, here. One is target is inside the train. Another one is target is outside the train.
Okay. I'm talking about inside the train.
Outside the train we cannot say, but inside the train though it is possible.
This question was inside the train only, so I'm talking about inside the train.
Okay, I think in that case,
yeah.
Right. So very interesting thing, right? So if you throw something up, it will fall on your hand, right? So Shankar was saying that we are at even though the train is moving, we are at rest. But when we throw the ball above, right, the ball is in no longer, the ball is not in contact with the train, right? It is in the air, suspended in the air. And it falls back only after some time, right?
But what is it? I don't know the word. The momentum that it got from the whatever forward going velocity that it got from being in the train, being in touch with the train, that is still there, no, when it's thrown up.
Right. So we can also argue in this manner. Okay, the momentum is there, granted. Because of that momentum, it will go ahead for some distance. But we can also say that it may not be at the same speed of the train, but maybe a little lesser. We could even argue it this way, right?
Okay.
Right. But okay, so you mentioned that if you try throwing a ball inside a train, it will behave the same way, right? It will behave the same way. So is this your experience, or is it
like playing catch inside a train, that kind of thing, right?
Okay, nice. Okay, so at this point, okay, so now just consider this scenario that you're going in the train, okay, and we have a very dense object, a very dense metal sphere, okay, and there is less air outside, and you're going out and you're putting your hand out of the window and throwing it out, and the train is going in again, say 100 km per hour or 50 km per hour. Now, when you throw the stone and when you're seeing it, how will it fall? So if we just draw a diagram here, this is the train. Okay, and at this point, at this point, you're dropping the stone. Okay, I will call this point T. Okay, and of course, the train is moving at a speed of 50 km per hour. Okay, so as soon as you drop it, then the train would have moved some distance towards the right. So now, where will the stone fall? Will it fall on T? So T is a fixed point on Earth.
It should fall a little to the right of T, I think.
It should fall to the right of T.
To the right of T, yes.
Right of T. Okay. So how much distance? Say the stone is taking 2 seconds to fall. Okay. With this information, can we calculate how much to the right it would have traveled? Or is it possible to tell something more about the path, the actual path it takes? Is it something like hypotenuse of a right triangle?
Yes, sure. If you represent the direction of motion of the train as a ray or a vector, so it will be horizontal towards the right. So just if you can draw, Shiv.
Okay, sure. This one, you mean like this?
Yes.
Okay.
And from the point of drop, you can draw a vertical line. Point.
You mean like this?
Yeah. So the direction of motion of the ball will be exactly between these two.
Okay, so now this is the point T on ground. So if it falls somewhere here, point U, then for an observer on the ground on Earth, the path of the stone would appear like a hypotenuse of this triangle.
Yes.
Okay, right. So at this point, okay, so this question was one of the most widely discussed questions in at around the 15th and 16th century in Europe. So people were asking these questions in many contexts. So if Earth is actually rotating, right? When Earth is rotating, when you throw an object very high, or if you are standing on a very high cliff, very, very high cliff, and then you drop an object, okay, will it exactly fall perpendicularly below that? Or because of Earth's rotation, it would have moved, or because of Earth's rotation, would it have moved somewhere else? So these are some of the questions people are asking. And in fact, people are also asking, how can a bird find its nest? Because once it leaves its nest and goes somewhere for food, the actual position of the nest in space would have changed because Earth is moving. So how is the bird able to reach? So yeah, so in these directions, lots of discussions happen. Okay, and it was during this time of discussion that Galileo published his very famous book in Italian. The English name is Dialogues. It's just called the Dialogues. It is written in the manner of dialogue between three people. So one, oh, you know, Gauri, Akka?
No, I heard about it, that it's in like three heads talking.
Yes. Three people talking. One is Simplicio, Salviati, and Saggiato. So Simplicio is a common man who has his common beliefs. Then the other guy is one who has a bit of scientific knowledge and who is trying to reason out. And the third person is the, we can say as the person who has thought through all these things. And basically the third person was Galileo. So yeah. And in this discussion, I'll just share one, I just thought of sharing one small write-up on this, which is from that book. So just give me a moment. Okay, what I will do is, I will share this link, Wikipedia link basically. Okay, and yeah. Okay, so in this Wikipedia link, of course, the whole article is interesting, but for now, I want you to go to this, the proposal, the heading proposal, the proposal, and just look at the experiment suggested by Salviati, who is actually Galileo.
Okay.
Yeah, so just take some time to go through that. It's a wonderful book. So he lays the foundations of mechanics, optics, and it is said that one of the reasons he wrote it in this manner was that at that time the church was strongly against any theories which challenged the Earth-centric model. So when so when he wrote it like this, he could just say that it was just a work of fiction. It has nothing to do with science.
Okay.
The proposal, the heading, the proposal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if others are done, you can just put a yes in chat. Yeah, I'll just wait for a minute more. Right. Just a minute more. So in that, so in that, reportedly, Galileo did an experiment of actually going to the top of the mast of a ship. Mast, I think, is this long vertical pole on the ship, which is used to support the sails. And it is said that he once went to the top of the mast and tried dropping an object. And in all these things, interestingly, the main condition is the ship should be either at rest or
uniform motion.
Uniform motion. Uniform motion in which path? Is it a uniform motion along a curved path or a straight path?
A straight path.
Straight path. So in fact, the word uniform velocity itself is referring to uniform speed in the straight path, right? So somehow this notion of straight path is coming and having an impact here. If it happens in this way, then the behavior is same. But if the ship is accelerating or if it is decelerating, then these kind of things are not observed. These kind of things are not observed, right? So yeah, so these are some of the experimental observations of people. So now if the train is, instead of going at the same speed, if it is accelerating, okay, its speed is increasing, we will. So this train is moving towards the east at 500 km/h. We'll just say that it's accelerating towards the east. Okay. And now when we drop, so now when we throw a ball upwards, perpendicularly upwards, where will it fall?
Probably it will fall behind us.
Okay, it will fall behind us.
No, we can catch it.
Shravana?
We can catch it. I mean, it will fall wherever we are.
Okay, I'll just repeat the constraints. So the train is accelerating. And now we throw it upwards. Okay, so where will it fall? That's the question.
Accelerating in the same direction.
Yeah.
Okay, so speed is increasing.
Yeah.
The reason I told it might fall behind is like at the point of release of the ball has the, let's say, velocity of say, x kilometers per hour. Whereas, I mean, at the time of dropping, since the train has accelerated, let's say, at that point, it is x plus some constant kilometer per hour. So that's the reason I predicted.
Okay, so you're saying that, okay, so at the point of release. Wait, so at the point
of release of the ball and at the time of catching the ball back.
Okay, at the point of release. So the x is, what does that x denote to?
It is the, let's say, it is the velocity at that point. Velocity of the train at that point.
Okay. So velocity of the train at that point is, we'll say, okay, x.
So after release, the relative velocity of train will be more compared to the ball.
More. Yeah.
After release, the relative velocity of train with respect to what?
Ball.
With respect to the ball will be more. Let's say x plus something, x plus y.
With respect to ball, okay, so now to make it a little simpler, shall we just talk with respect to Earth? So at the point of release, the velocity of train is x with respect to Earth. Okay? Or basically, in our words, we just say this is the velocity of the train. Okay? So after that, now can you rephrase your statement?
So at the point of release, velocity of the train and the velocity of the, let's say, ball is x kilometers per hour.
Oh, okay. So velocity in the sense, okay, so now the eastward velocity of the ball, velocity of train, and this eastward velocity of ball is both x.
Yeah, both x.
Okay, nice.
Both x.
X. Okay, right.
And at the point, I mean, at the time of catching the ball.
Okay.
So the velocity of the train, let's say, it is x plus y, whereas the velocity of the ball still remains as x kilometers per hour.
Okay, velocity of train has definitely increased. We'll say x plus some k because it's accelerating. But the eastward velocity, you're saying that the eastward velocity of ball
remains same.
Is unaffected and it is x.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, if this is the case, now if
it will reduce actually.
Right. Okay. So Shravan is saying the eastward velocity of ball would have reduced. So now, okay. There are two questions. Whether it is x or would have reduced, these two questions are there. But in both these scenarios, if this is the case, then the ball should have fallen. Should fall behind us, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So now one question. Okay, so now let us take what Galileo has said to be an experimental fact. Okay, that That is, when the train is moving at a uniform speed, or when any object is going in a uniform speed, the behavior of that system is exactly identical to the behavior of a system that's at rest. Okay, right. Now, if you take that as a fact, can we deduce these things from that, or is this something a new? Is this something a new fact which has to be again established by experiment?
Can you repeat the statement?
Statement is, so we will take the Galileo's inference or his experiment and experimental result that a system going at uniform speed is indistinguishable from a system that is at rest. Okay, in terms of motion. So we will take that as a fact. Okay, on Earth we'll just stick to Earth for now. Now, if that is a fact, now the statements which Sunil has made, right? Are these statements something that can be deduced from that fact or law, or does this require an extra experimentation to establish it?
But here the train is not moving in uniform speed. No?
Correct. So when Sunil is saying that when Sunil and you are saying that the eastward velocity of ball has to be x, or it will reduce from x, right? So how are you saying that? Is it your experience?
No, based on Galileo's observation.
How are you inferring from that?
So are you asking why will the eastward velocity of the ball reduce? Is that what you're asking?
Yes. How can you establish that? Can you establish that from Galileo's fact that uniform system is indistinguishable from the system at rest? Is this a logical consequence of that?
But here neither of the objects are at uniform speed now, so there is no way that we can relate this to that.
Right. So then how will you establish that? Yes.
So this is comparable to you throw the ball and then the train goes forward. Like it is, you said a system in uniform motion is the same as a system where
at rest.
Yeah, a system at rest, right? So this new statement with the acceleration can be compared to you're on the train, you threw the ball and then the train starts moving. So the initial is 0. So from that we can say that it will fall behind.
Oh, very, very nice. So basically what Akka is doing is she's considering another scenario which is similar to this, where the train is at rest, you're throwing the ball and the train starts.
Yeah, yes. Because according to Galileo, both are same. System in uniform motion and system at rest are same. Behave similarly.
Wow.
Basically, we can put this x to 0 like.
Right. Wow. Super.
But then it would not change anything. No?
What would not change?
Instantaneous velocity, we are assuming it as x. So one of the values of x is 0. Nothing else is changing here.
X is 0, but then there is k, no? So
yeah, I think theoretically also we can prove like the distance traveled by the train and also calculate the distance traveled by the train and also calculate the distance traveled by the ball, horizontal distance traveled by the ball. So with uniform,
to calculate the horizontal distance traveled by the ball, you need to know its horizontal velocity, right?
Yes.
Right. So you are saying that it will remain x.
Yes.
So Shravan is saying it will reduce from x. Right?
Assuming no, Earth.
Uniform.
So have you is this a part of your experience that if the train is at rest and when you throw an object and when it starts, that object will fall behind you? Is that your experience? Have you tried it out anytime or? Yeah.
So probably we can try it right now. Right now at our places.
You can throw and run forward.
Run forward. Yeah.
Nice. So then what can you say about this eastward velocity of ball now? So yeah, now if you actually take into consideration this x equal to 0 case,
then it will be less than x.
Okay, it will be less than x. Okay, yeah. So now, how are you saying that?
Because of forces acting in other directions. Could be gravity and air resistance.
Okay, air resistance. For now, we are discounting it.
Gravity would reduce this.
Gravity would reduce the eastward velocity.
The effect of gravity would be the same whether the ball was thrown or not.
Yeah, right. So, what's the consequence of this statement? What is the consequence of this statement?
What statement?
No, the statement which Akka made, that the effect of gravity is the same if it is at rest or if it is at motion, right? That's what you made, right?
I mean, yeah, at rest in the train or thrown up in the train. The effect of gravity is the same. So what is the consequence? I don't know.
Okay.
Gravity should not.
Yeah, it's sure. Yeah, the ball is subjected to two forces here. One is like a horizontal eastward velocity of the train, and another is gravity. So while the ball is falling, it is undergoing the force of gravity, and also it has a horizontal velocity or speed, whatever.
Right. So this at this point, right? You're saying that it would be x, Sunil?
Yes.
Okay. So if you remember the law of inertia, right? So what it says is an object at rest remains at rest, and an object going in a uniform velocity in a straight line continues that motion until an external force acts on it. Right? Interestingly, this coupled with law of addition of forces, right? Or we could take it as an again an experimental fact that after you release, okay, so the train is accelerating and we are throwing it up, right? What happens is, since there is no opposition to the eastward flow or the eastward movement of the ball, that velocity will remain unchanged. And since it is going in a straight line, that velocity will remain unchanged. But we are throwing it up with some force, and because of that force, it will go up, and it will fall down because of gravity, right? And this part is independent of the eastward. So what is happening here is unaffected by the eastward movement, or in other words, what will happen in the train for this motion is exactly the same as what will happen on the ground. The height reached, the time taken, everything will be same. So this is the train, and this motion in the ground, both will be same. Is what is suggested by experiments, and this is what has been formulated as this law of inertia, right? So yeah, it is basically a combination of law of inertia and law of addition of vectors. Yeah, so this is something which needs to be thought about. Okay. Yeah. So basically, how it is treated, how we treat it is that the eastward velocity of the ball will remain unaffected. Okay. So one thing that we can crystallize out of Galileo's observation and the extra observation on accelerating system is this: that an object at rest will remain at rest, and an object at uniform motion will remain in the uniform motion until an external unbalanced force acts on it against that particular motion. Right. So now the question is, now if you come to this train example, right? So here we are dropping the ball here, okay, at 50 km/h, and then there is no, if you consider a very dense thick ball and with less air, then its eastward velocity will remain 50 km/h. So the ball's velocity is, its eastward velocity is 50 km/h constantly till it hits the ground, and then downwards it is starting with the speed of 0 km/h, okay, but then it has an acceleration of some 9.8 meter per second square. So now both these things are acting on this body simultaneously, right? So if you like take it second by second or millisecond by millisecond, if the ball is here, after say one small time unit delta t, it would have traveled eastward. It would have traveled eastward 50 into delta t, and it would have traveled downward some value which is like, we can explicitly calculate it using this acceleration and initial speed. It would have traveled some distance d, right? So in fact, it would have traveled this 50 delta t and d. So it will be somewhere here. It would have traveled, it would have reached here. And again, after another delta t, it would have reached somewhere here. Okay. So now the question is, what is the straight line or this path, right? Will it be a straight line or will it be something different? It's again one question. But yeah, I will.
You're ignoring the effect of air.
Yes. Ignoring the effect of air. In fact, this question can be seen in this now. So now, once we take, once we accept this law of inertia, right, that this body will have this 50 km/h speed till it falls to the ground. This scenario is equivalent to another scenario. What is that? There is something very close to what Akka said for the train example.
You start from rest.
Throwing something.
Exactly. It is like you're just standing somewhere and throwing it at something, throwing it in such a way that it is having that velocity 50 km/h, right? So normally what is our experience? So suppose I stand somewhere and I throw something horizontally at some 50 km/h. Then how will its path be?
It will be a like
It will be in a straight line like this hypotenuse of a triangle.
Parabola.
So it will be curve.
Yeah, it will be something like this, right? Right. So in fact, it can be actually mathematically calculated. I mean, the shape can be mathematically calculated by using these two parameters.
Yes, if those two forces are equal, then probably the path would be a straight line. There are two forces acting, right? One is horizontal and one is...
Wait. So force is a technical word. So yeah, actually, in our general usage, we can say that two forces are acting. Okay. But if you see, in this scenario, we won't represent it like that. We represent it as there are two components of it. It just has a downward force of gravity and it has a horizontal component of velocity. This is what we see. I mean, if you see, so force, the word force is not used here. But in our common usage, we can say that, okay, since I have thrown it, I have used some force, so it has that, it has two components, yes. And the two components being equal. Now, actually, as I said, the word force, right? So if you have applied a force on this, if you have applied a horizontal force on this body, the word force, it implies that this would be accelerating, not going in a uniform speed. Right. So
so what I was trying to say is that path traveled by the ball or whatever, it would be a straight line if those two forces are equal. Or
those two forces. So now the question is it possible for them to be equal? Again. So when you say force, what do you mean? So downward you have gravity. That is clear.
Downward, yeah, gravitational.
Horizontal force, how will you quantify it?
You cannot say it as a force,
right? But now we don't have to think in terms of force. We can just think it in terms of velocities and accelerations, right? So we have two components here. One component, the eastward component, is uniform speed of 50 km/h. Okay, and the downward component is a constant acceleration of g, that is 9.8 meter per second square. Now the question is it possible to have a eastward speed in such a way that this, along with this acceleration downwards, will create a straight line?
Yeah.
Is it possible? Right?
If the train is accelerating at 9.8 meters per second square.
Horizontally. But if the train is accelerating at 9.8 meters per second square, after you leave it, right? After you drop it, will the stone be still accelerating? According to what you have discussed so far, if the train is accelerating at a speed of 9.8 meters per second square and you drop it out of the window, will the stone be accelerating?
Oh, that's a good question.
Right. So, I mean, if you are familiar with coordinate geometry, right, we can actually calculate this. So we have this. We will choose some point x comma 0. Sorry. 0 comma h. Okay, and now after the distance t, after a time interval t, you can just calculate where this object would have moved. So it has two components. One is the speed of, we just call this speed u, and this acceleration g, acceleration a. Okay, so it is possible to exactly calculate how much it would have moved along x-axis and how much it would have moved along y-axis. Call it as 0 comma h. Okay, and if you actually calculate it out, you will get this equation of parabola. Yeah. So after t units, it would have moved ut along x-axis, right?
Yeah.
And how much would it have moved downward? We have the initial velocity is 0, acceleration is a. So we can calculate s, right? If you know this, s is equal to
ut plus half it is square.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah. So u is 0 there.
Exactly. So this will go here. So this would be just half 80 square.
Yeah.
Right. So after time interval t, the position of the ball is ut, comma h minus half 80 square.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So from here we can see that if you see the relation between this x coordinate and y coordinate, it is quadratic.
Yeah, one is linear and the y coordinate is quadratic. Yeah.
Quadratic.
So
yeah, we will get an equation of a parabola from this. Right. Yeah, fine. So this is something, s is equal to ut plus half 80 square is one thing. Yeah, if you are not familiar with it, you can just ignore what has happened now. I'm just discussing this. But one more interesting thing from this discussion is this idea of instantaneous velocity, right? Always, whenever we have some parameter, right, it is very important to know its meaning, right? What is the meaning of instantaneous velocity of an object? How do you define it?
It is the velocity at a particular point, at the time t, let's say, at time t1 or t0.
Velocity at time. Okay, what do you mean by velocity? What do you mean by velocity?
Or you can say, Shiv, you take a very, very, very small interval, and the instantaneous velocity will be the velocity at let's say t0, the difference between the velocity at t0 and t1. So the time interval is how you taken as very small.
Right. But so what Sunil is saying is instantaneous velocity t0 is nothing but you take two intervals T naught and some other interval T1 which is very close to it, and then find the average speed over it. That is basically the
distance traveled over
T1
minus T naught.
T naught. This would give the instantaneous speed at T naught. Okay, but then now this will depend on the choice of T1, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
So for different people, you would get different instantaneous velocities.
Yeah. So the smaller the interval, more accurate will be the instantaneous velocity.
More accurate would be the instantaneous. So now with this, so if all the experimental observations of our masters are true, then what will happen? Can you predict what will happen in this aeroplane case? Aeroplane is dropping these food packets. I'll just again drop it here. So we have this aeroplane. It is dropping food packet. It is going at 1,000 km/h westward. Okay, and the duration between two successive packets is 5 seconds. Okay. Let us assume that as soon as it touches the ground, it will just remain there. There's a lot of friction, it will just remain there. How would these food packets arrange themselves in the ground? And yeah, we can again. So we'll just look at the ideal condition where there is no effect of air. No air influence. Again, this is an ideal condition. So now, according to theory, so what does theory predict? And second thing is, as soon as the packet touches the ground, it will stay there. Sorry, 1,000 meters per second is insanely fast, right? I'll make it 100 meters per second. Okay, fine. So, but if it is just accelerating, then of course I've not given the acceleration and other information. But what can you say about the alignment of food packets? Can you make any comments on that? So one thing here is, even if there is so even if there is influence of air, the influence of air would be uniform for all the food packets, more or less, right? So yeah, even if you actually do this, we would expect almost similar behavior as we predicted. Yeah, so actually the discussion that we had on this, one of the most foundational principles of mechanics was, we just had a very brief and a shallow discussion to say. So there are lots of questions on how can we establish a law, what kind of experiments are needed, and once we establish that, what is the role of reason, what is the role of observation, so these are some things which we are not touched in today's discussion. This is something which you can think about. And also this notion of straight line, which we are discussing, right? It is again coming into play here, right? If the train is not going in a straight line, but it is going in a circular path with the same speed, this won't work, is what experience is suggesting. So what is this? What is so special about straight path? And what is straightness? These are some very foundational questions.
She could not get the answer to your previous question, actually.
Okay. So uniform speed, right? Right. So what do you think about the answer to this question that I raised? Suppose if the first packet falls in this part, the second packet, where would it be on the ground, on the air? To the right of it, to the left of it, east of it, or west of it? It's going westward.
I think it will be 5 seconds before you are saying, right? The second packet hits the ground.
No. So first a packet is dropped, and after 5 seconds, the second packet is dropped. After 5 seconds, the third packet is dropped, like this.
Okay.
So the first packet hits here. At that moment, when the first packet hits the ground, where would the second packet be on air? Would it be to the east of it, to the west of it?
Exactly top.
Exactly top. Right? Right? Again, from what we have observed and the law that we have observed, that the speed is unaffected at the straight line. So this is going at 100 meters per second. It will continue going at each of the packets after the release will continue going at a speed of 100 meters per second westward. Right. And so when this lands here, this would be directly above it. Okay.
Yeah.
But then we have this condition, right? That as soon as it touches the ground, it will stay there. Or instead of a foot packet, take it as a missile. Hope nobody does it. Yeah. So the missile hits here and it blasts off. Okay. Now, okay, so now it is directly above it, right? From this, can you tell something more of where this second packet will land?
It is like the distance it takes. I mean, distance. It travels for 5 seconds.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly, right? Now, this packet or this missile will land after 5 seconds. So this will be exactly above it. So the missile will be exactly above it. The second. Okay. And then after how many seconds will it reach the ground? It will reach the ground after 5 seconds.
5 seconds.
Okay. And during this 5 seconds, of course, it has this vertical motion, but it also has a westward motion, right? That speed is unaffected, right? That is 100 meters per second. So it would travel. How much would it travel, Sunil?
So it is speed into time. So 100 into 500 meters.
So 500 meters, right? Right. So all would be 500. Would be spaced 500 meters apart. There is again another very beautiful question with respect in the same theme of this velocity and relative velocity. So this is the question set up. So there is a fisherman who is rowing a boat. Okay, who's rowing a boat. The fisherman has a hat, and he is rowing downstream. And then he sees that there are not enough fishes here, so he decides to turn back and go upstream. And just when he starts going upstream, his hat falls off. So hat falls off just when he starts going upstream. And then, but he doesn't notice it, and he keeps traveling upstream. And then after some time, he realizes that his precious hat has fallen down. Okay, and then he turns back. And when he turns back, the distance between him and the hat, when he turns back downstream, the distance between the boat and the hat is 5 miles. In still water, the speed of rowing is, the speed of the boat is 5 miles per hour. And the speed of the river is 3 miles per hour. Okay. So speed of the river is 3 miles per hour with respect to what?
Land.
Huh?
With respect to the...
With the ground. Ground.
With respect to Earth. Some point on Earth. Or, yeah. So whenever we talk about, whenever we have Earth as a reference, we don't specify it. Okay, yeah. These are the conditions. Okay. So now the question is, he drops the hat at 2 p.m. When will he catch the hat? At what time will he catch the hat? Are you familiar with this question? Have you seen this puzzle before?
Not exactly this puzzle, but the 10th standard students have such kind of...
Right, yeah. But this question has a very beautiful, so yeah, we can use that straightforward upstream, downstream approach and get the answer. But this is a very beautiful answer. So is this the time taken for the person? So this is the time between what and what? So we will just say that the time at which the hat is dropped is 2 p.m. When will he get back the hat?
Oh, okay. At time at which it turns back is not 2 p.m. Time at which it falls off.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Sunil, you can give your solution. How did you do it?
Yeah, if F denotes the fisherman, okay, the left end is, that is F. Okay, and towards the right, H1, the distance between F and H1 is 5 miles. And write another H2 towards the right of H1. And let the distance between H1 and H2 be X.
Okay.
So now the time taken for the fisherman to go from F to H2 is same as the time taken by hat to go from H1 to H2.
Correct.
Because the fisherman catches the H2, right?
Correct.
So time taken by fisherman to go to H2 is 5 plus X by 8. That is distance by time, distance by speed, which is 8 because he is going downstream, right? So it is 5 plus 3. So and the time taken by hat to go from H1 to H2 is X by 3. It's the distance divided by speed. Speed is speed of X by 3, which is speed of the stream.
Right.
So, I equate these two and I get the value of X as 3 miles. Nice. So from this, I can calculate the time actually.
So from this, okay. So if X is 3, then what is the time taken for this is F to H2? What's the time? This is 1 hour.
1 hour, yes. Yeah.
Right. So this is 1 hour, and then what else is to be calculated?
Because as you said, because he realizes that the hat has been dropped after what is H0 here?
H0 is a place where the hat is actually dropped.
Okay.
So what is remaining is you have to calculate this time between and to go from H0 to F, right? And you should add it to
1. Yeah.
Thought because when he's going upstream, his speed would be 5 minus 3, 2. So for distance to be 5 and the hat would be moving at 3. So if the distance is 5, then the time is 1 hour. So
sorry. Oh, okay. So the hat is going at 3 and the boat is going at 2.
And you said distance is 5, so it added up nicely for 1 hour. So.
Oh, okay. So the time taken for H0 to F is actually 1 hour, you're saying.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So your reasoning is the hat's eastward speed is 3 miles per hour.
Yeah.
And the boat's
westward speed is 2 miles per hour.
2 miles per hour.
Yeah.
So using these two, what did you do?
So at the point when he realizes the distance is 5, and since the time duration is the same, that they've been in motion, that must be 1 hour.
This must be 1 hour. Right? So 3/2 plus 2t must be 5.
Yeah.
And the t is 1.
Yeah.
Okay, nice. And then?
So then he goes back and, hat and the effect of the river on hat and boat is the same. So it's like he's rowing at 5. So since the distance is 5, it should take him 1 hour to catch him.
Effect of what? Effect of?
River. Effect of the river on hat and boat is same.
Okay.
So all that matters is what speed he's rowing, which is 5. So he'll catch up in 1 hour.
If the river is accelerating, would the effect of river on boat and hat be the same?
If the river is accelerating.
Okay, so Sunil, what Akka has done here is, so instead of, all these calculations that you did, right, was with respect to Earth. Right, all the velocities you took with respect to Earth and you did it, right? So now you slightly tweak it. So you slightly tweak it and take the river water, we'll just take this river, okay, and we will take a water droplet here as a point of reference. Okay, now of course this water droplet is moving with respect to Earth at a speed of 3 km per hour, but we'll just fix this as the frame of reference. Okay.
Yeah.
And now let us take that just when the fisherman turns upstream, the hat falls exactly on this point. Okay, this is where the hat has fallen. Now, when the fisherman realizes that he has dropped his hat, the distance between him and the hat is how much?
5 miles. 5 miles.
5 miles, right? Now the question is, how much time would you have traveled to reach this? Okay, so now since we are keeping this point as our frame of reference, okay, we will calculate all the velocities with respect to this point. Okay, now what is the relative velocity of the boat with respect to this point on the water?
So with respect to that point, Shiv, it is the speed of the boat only, which is 5.
Exactly, right? So now if you're just if you're just keeping this point as the frame of reference, now now we need to find the time taken for the boat to reach to this point F from how much time would it have taken to reach this and turn back? So now while turning back, the distance is 5 miles, right? So how much time would you have taken to reach this point?
It is the speed of the river only, which is 3.
No. Speed of the hat with respect to this point. So we are making all the measurements with respect to this point on water. So we are changing our frame of reference completely to this point. Yeah. So basically, if you just change the frame of reference to this one point of water on the river, so now, so just think about it and see if you can calculate this time from the time for the fisherman to turn back. Right. So you see if you simplify this time and also simplifies the time for F to reach to H2. So both these things, when we change it to when we change the frame of reference, see the calculation.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
We will conclude today's session here.